minutes, and I think it's going to be very well suited with Jane's presentation, because I'm going to give an alternative vision of usages and how technologies are used within enterprise. This is going to be an extract from LECKO study. So as Björn said, LECKO, which is a consulting company, issue a study every year about enterprise social networks and enterprise 2.0, how is it adopted inside real companies. And this year, the study is really very interesting because it is based on real data. That's what I say. That's why I say it's alternative to Jane's presentation, because we made a benchmark with 15 real customers that are using enterprise social networks. So, and we are measuring what they are doing, and I'm going to present you some of the results. The survey, the total survey and the total study, in French, RSE Tome 6, was issued last end of January, and is available for free to all of you. I'm going to talk about the what are the lessons learned in terms of usages, in terms of technologies, and the goal is to transform the organization and to transform the way we work. So these two usages and technologies should lead us to the Holy Grail, which is enterprise transformation. So in terms of usages, I skip this because we have little time. So the LECKO engagement model is based on measuring, as I said, the activity inside the enterprise social network. And from this activity, we measure the engagement of the users, both in terms of conversation and relationship. They're built inside the social network. As I said, we measured the activity of 15 enterprise participating to the benchmark. We gathered up to 5 years of history, because of course, the benchmark started this year, but we could reuse the logs of the activity logs of these enterprise, and some of them had a collaboration platform for more than 5 years. So we could reuse these logs, and this give us a long history. And this is a tremendous work made by Guillaume, who is in this room, who is the leader of all this study and this survey. He was telling me that we have more than 8 million entries in our database. Each entry measure an activity or something the user is doing, which is illustrated here. And from what they are doing, we have metrics to compute engagement. So with this data, so you see the interesting point is that it's an application of big data to our own activity, to analyzing enterprise social networks and social activities. We can build abacuses. Here, sorry, it's a mistake. I wrote 5 organizations. It's 15, as I said earlier. So we can build the engagement curve of the users, of the communities, of the enterprise through time. And from all these thousands of curves, we can build abacus. And what is interesting is that it's not a scoop. We can identify some well-known curve, an engagement curve, in some of the communities. Okay, so this is the first finding. Interesting one is that the period of adoption is like 1 year or 2 years It's not 1 month. So to go over the hype and then to reach a productivity plateau and then to restart, to reboost the community, it takes the average 1 year or 2 years. Another interesting finding is that, of course, the engagement curve depends on the community size. And there is kind of notion of critical mass. Because if you have a very small community, of course, it will go down very fast in 2 months in average. If you have a bigger community, then the activity can last more, but then it's difficult. And if you have a larger, a very transversal one, more than 1,000 users, then you see that the curve is a little bit different, which of course is something quite intuitive. And this is the interesting point regarding social activity. We know that there is, we feel that there is a kind of critical mass. You can collaborate with a small team on a given project. Okay, of course, it's going to work. But if you want to build a transversal community across business line, then you need a kind of critical mass, probably at least 100 users. So overall, the finding of this survey is that when you have an enterprise social network in a company, usually most of the value is derived by very few communities. So it's like a Pareto rules, we could say. Maybe less than 10% of the communities are generating 90% of the value in the enterprise social network. But in itself, it's not a problem. We know that, as somebody said earlier, within the enterprise social network, we have to learn, and failure is accepted if we learn from it. So, of course, using the social network is not a guarantee that you are going to transform the enterprise, but it's an enabler because you cannot change the culture, change the habits just by talking or just by making projects. You change the culture, change the usages by through action. Most of the communities, as I said, are not working, but we know that. In our study, it's about 66% of the community that never take off. And most of them remain few too many communication, like top-down or pure communication communities. But the good news is that overall, because as I said, we have 4 or 5 years of history, we can measure that overall the engagement is increasing in those 15 enterprises that participated to the benchmark. So overall, in average, it's increasing of 18% per year, which is encouraging, of course. In terms of technology, I'm going to move a little bit faster. What are the trends regarding the collaboration and social network market? Surprisingly, maybe, the market is not really structuring. The market is still developing. The market is not consolidating. There are more and more actors on the French market. Now I'm talking about French market. Last year, we identified 45 vendors of collaboration and social network solution. This year, we have 29 in our LECKO survey, and we select the vendors according to very strict criteria. So these vendors are more numerous. And not only there are more vendors, but the feature, the solution are richer and richer. In 5 years, we measure all the functionality, the features provided by collaboration and social network tools, and the number of features have doubled in 5 years since we are making these market analysis. And of course, the revenue is also increasing, especially regarding SaaS platform. Last year in 12-13, it almost doubled the turnover for this market. So overall, regarding technologies, of course, these social technologies are going to continue to get deployed. However, we can notice that in our benchmark, in our customer, we are building Enterprise 2.0 solution and expectation, of course, on top of 1.0 habits and practices. The cultural and management practices are still 1.0 in most of our company and benchmark, we must admit. And also, regarding information system, we can notice that business applications are still disconnected from social network or from collaboration platform. So we have not yet made this merge, or enterprises, practitioners have not yet make this merge between business application and collaboration. Collaboration and business and social network have not yet really reached the core of the enterprise business processes. Of course, in some we can find examples, and we can find very good examples, but it's not the majority. Finally, how can we transform nowadays the companies are transforming their usage, because most of the company we are talking to have the will to transform to new usages, new practices, new management, and so on. So I'm going to skip this because I see Bjorn is getting closer, so it means that my time is reducing. So most companies are trying to transform, and they are looking, here I call it super smart enterprise. We can call that Enterprise 2.0. So the question is, what is Enterprise 2.0? Is it only a company that uses a social network? Of course not. It's much more than that. It's very different. So I try to summarize the key points or the key challenges toward these objectives, or toward this holy grail. And these sum up all the main trends we can identify in our survey. So the smart company, or the super smart enterprise, is the one that is able to take advantage of mobility, not only as a technology, but of course as a new way of working, as a new way of working for their employees, and of course as new services they can provide to their customer. Cloud computing, we all know that, is also an important trend. It's not an objective in itself, it's an enabler, but it allows new business model. For instance, in LECKO, we are a consulting company. We use the cloud to provide new type of services to our customers. We provide tools, and we provide online services, online methodologies that we would not be able to provide without cloud computing. Of course, social business, if we use social network, it's to make our business more social. So new way to create value with customer, new way to collaborate among employees, new way to exploit our human resources, of course, and to work with supplier. We all know that. Better usage of analytics and big data. So here I showed you how we use at LECKO analytics and big data to better understand our business and to better understand how what our customers are doing. So the big data and the analytics, of course, is a key trend. We all know that, and it will allow not only to make better decisions, but to make better forecasts for enterprises and to manage their transformation. I try to give an illustration. Another key challenge is the social information system. As I was saying, social networks or collaboration platforms are not really vertical, are not integrated with business application nowadays. So this is still a challenge we are facing. And of course, the question is, are we going to socialize the business application, or is the enterprise social network going to become a kind of framework, maybe a digital workplace, like Jen was defining it, to integrate, to act as a framework that will integrate the business application and make them social? There are two alternative or two different trends, I would say, and of course the actors are not the same. Digital identity, we've talked not that much about that, but it's going to be, it's not yet a big issue for enterprise because they are not very mature yet, but it's going to become as they engage in the social networks. All the data that you have in the social network, all the rich profiles of all the employees, of course, it's invaluable data, and you realize that there is no standard to manage this data on the market. All this data is totally kept in tools that are totally proprietary, whereas this is probably the most valuable information for the company. So this is going to be a big issue or a big point. How do I manage all the personal data I develop in my company? Design is also a very important key. We know that product design and so on, and it's going to be more and more. So the smart enterprise is also the enterprise that is able to design things more clever and not have a collection of tools that are not integrated and so on. Recently, IBM announced that they are going to double the number of designers they are having in their company. They are having, I think, 300, and they are going to hire 300 more because they identify it's really key. Almost the last point, the last challenge is the gamification. It's also a trend. Companies are using more and more games to learn. We all know that. But since transformation is about changing behavior, I attended a conference recently, and it was very interesting to learn that the most efficient way to change people's behavior is to have them play. And when you play, you change behavior. It's not by listening a conference that you change behavior, or it's by playing or by acting. And so given that our topic is about changing behavior, changing culture, we can understand that the game is going to have a more and more important place in that. And the last point, and that's going to be my conclusion, it's what I would call lâcher prise. Most companies are really lacking, and this concept is it's quite an oxymoron with the company. It's contradictory with how companies are working. But lâcher prise is about not trying to predict everything that's going to happen, not trying to analyze all the consequences of your action before doing these actions. If you want to get to the transformation, you need to have this kind of lâcher prise, and it's lacking dramatically in company nowadays. As Jen said, they don't fall into the ROI game, and we can generalize this this advice by advising to have a little bit of lâcher prise, which is accept to be surprised, accept to launch initiative without knowing exactly what's going to happen, without knowing exactly what the ROI will be. Thank you.
Thank you, Michel. Maybe you take your place already. So are there questions? Yes.
Correct me if I'm not wrong. You are looking at activities. You're not. Are you looking at something like some sort of network analysis? How a network grow, or how silos become broken through new networks? This is from the personal profile, or let's say follow or network. Another thing is, have you seen any data that indicate that communities merge, or let's say not merge in the sense of a community itself, but in the sense of referring each other? I would be interested in seeing the real data in the sense of build-up of network. I can see activities going in this way is predictable, but if you want to go deep into the quality of your what is that, social network or social business platform, I think you have to go one step deeper. And for example, wikis is traditionally also iteration is a lot more important than creating new pages. Have you looked into these kind of things? Because it's very well known that Wikipedia or wikis, the more people edit the same page, that page, the quality is higher. This is at least an indicator. Have you looked into this?
Okay. Well, I think the database we have built is quite unique, at least on the French market, we think, because it gathers 15 enterprises, 5 years of history, and not only activity logs as you described them, but it's not only user activity, but it analyzes also communities, the life of communities, and the life of individuals, and the relationship the individuals are developing among themselves. So we have all these dimensions in the data. Here I presented some findings we have, but of course we can develop more and more about that, and the participants of the benchmark have much more detailed data about their activity. And of course, if enterprises are willing to join the benchmark, it's open. The rule of the game is that if you join the benchmark, you make available access to all the activity logs and history and database of your social network or collaboration platform. Of course, LECKO does not divulgate this information, just general trends like I just did, and company participating have detailed reports about what they are doing on the overall social network per community also. I don't know, but I understand your point about if you make a contribution, it's one thing, but if you keep editing the same data, then it's different. It's much more valuable instead of working on many new different things. So I can understand that, and I think that that's probably something we can try to improve. Guillaume, who is here, will be happy to give you a more precise answer about this specific point.
Okay, as the time is already running out.